Oh, well, welcome. Thank you, Trina. I'm happy to be here. What an introduction.
So we actually met at 1 Million Cups, which is all about supporting entrepreneurs. And we had a meeting, and I've loved you ever since. And one of the things that you were really passionate about was one of the podcasts you had done for a season of your life. You've done a lot of things, and you're really transparent. If you don't follow her on TikTok, follow her on TikTok. She's all about sharing wisdom and insight there, which I love TikTok. It's like a channel surfer's dream, right?
I agree. I
But
agree.
I stopped down to watch yours, and you're always very open with, how we need to accept that we're going to have these transitions in life if we're fortunate enough to age and move on and progress. And it's okay for them to be different chapters. It's okay to turn the page. So, kind of talk to me about that season in your life and then how things have been changing for you.
Oh gosh. So the podcast I did, gosh, that was started in, I don't know, back in the day. It was Women Over 50 A Life Redesigned. And I was probably 54 at the time, so it's been a while ago. But I just felt so different after I turned 50. It was like I can't explain it, but I turned 50 and I just felt so different. And I wanted to learn the experiences of other women as well. I had just come off a big transition in my life where and the podcast is still out there. People can go find it and listen to my story. So I'm not going to go into great detail here. But I had just come back, just gotten off a really big transition of my life of going out to Colorado and doing some things. And I wanted to know what other women my age were doing. And it was so interesting, Trina. I bet I talked to well over 100 women from all over the world. And the really fascinating and interesting thing is, Trina, is that we were all going through the same thing, basically.
Yeah.
Different places, maybe it's a little different, but the way that we were progressing through these transitions, the way that we were handling these transitions, and the way that we were feeling was basically the same. And I heard from a lot of women who listen to my podcast that said, "Oh my gosh, I feel the exact same way." So it was such a fun experience, such a good experience. I met so many amazing women, and that's that was my podcast.
And why did you quit? I mean, it seems like you had a good thing going. So why change? Why stop?
Well, as you know, Trina, podcasting is a lot of work.
Yeah.
There's the editing, the producing, the scheduling of guests. I just started getting bombarded with all these
Wow.
requests, and I was working full time
Mhm.
at an agency. I was a development director, which means I raised money at an agency that was really um, it was an agency that provided free of charge services to victims of violent and sexual crime. So it was a really like heavy
Yeah.
mission, for lack of a better word. And I just found myself drained. And I decided it was time before I went running down the street with my hair on fire, screaming. It was just time that I let go on a high note, a good
Mhm.
note for myself mentally.
Yeah.
And so that's why I did that, gave myself a little bit of a break with that. And it had run its course.
Yeah.
It's 4.5 years, 5 years maybe
Wow.
that I did that podcast. One episode a week, except for the month of July, which was my birthday month.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, and that's a really important thing that you noticed, that you had too many plates you were trying to spin in the air, and
yes,
that sometimes you got to set something down. And
right.
and and I think that we feel like a failure when we do that sometimes, and I don't know why. We tell other people it's okay, but then when it comes to ourselves, we're like, oh my gosh, I don't know about you, but I'm always like, well, I that's not what I wanted to happen. And I we will beat ourselves up a lot of times when it comes to doing stuff like that, but it should be more natural than trying to keep everything going. That's not natural.
No, it's not. And I that's an excellent point you bring up. And I automatically flashed on a book that I read by Daniel Pink called The Power of Regrets. And one of the things he talks about, it's a really great book. I highly recommend people as we get older to read it. But in there, he said in his research, he found that when we're younger, we regret the things we do. But when we get
Mm-hmm.
older, we regret the things we didn't do.
Yeah.
So I, always think of that book when I talk about failure, um, so to speak, because I'm a firm belief that you should try something, and if it doesn't work out, well, you tried it,
Yeah.
and you won't regret. If I'd said, oh my gosh, I wish I'd done a podcast, and I didn't,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
I might regret that later. So yeah, I think it's more of a failure to want to do something and not try it
Mm-hmm.
and find
Yeah.
out if it's going to be a good fit for you or not.
Well, and I think something a lot of people, I want them to realize that you can try something without it being your full-time
Yeah, yeah,
sustainable life job. I mean, I always use the example of writing. You don't have to quit the job that feeds the family to write, just write a little bit here and there and feed that part of your creative passion and be a writer that way, or whatever that is. Dip your toes in the waters where you can to see if it's worth diving into more, or like you're saying, just to try.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
So let's talk about where you're at now and how you got to where you're at now. You've had some pretty impactful things happen to you and with your partner over the past few months. So how did your career change from where you were before this started? And how did that feel moving through that and where you're at now?
Well, basically, my career ended. They ended my career for me, so I really didn't have much of a choice, and I was let go from my job, a development job in another organization, due to Steve's diagnosis and him being in the hospital for 2 weeks, and me uh, then becoming his caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been, what is this? Oh gosh, it's been 6 months since all this happened. And so it's really given me some time to like step back and think about some things. And while I've been in the not-for-profit world, Trina, since 1996 or something
Mm-hmm.
like that, a long time, and doing fund development probably for about 15 years of that. So it's like, part of you that I know it's like you and you're running. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
if it's all of a sudden something you're not doing anymore, you're thinking, oh, who am I
Mm-hmm.
now without this, without this, thing that I've always done. But now that I'm back from it, I realize while I love the not-for-profit work, I don't want to go back into it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not for the
It,
faint of heart.
it's not, and in development, the the research says that the term of a development director in an agency is usually 18 months. So it's a really like stressful job because you're asking people for money. So if you want to get in development, and you like rejection, that's a good job to have.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
always joked about how I was rejected every day of my life. But so back to your question. So I realize, what are my strengths? What are my strengths that I really want to lean into? And one of them is, I love research. I love
Mm-hmm.
social policy research. My educational background's in social work. One of my top signature strengths is ideation. So I have just all these ideas floating around all the time. And I thought, how can I, like, get my righteous indignation that you see on TikTok, in a form that people will want to listen to. And then when all this was happening, Trina, there were a lot of systems that I was let down by as an
Mm-hmm.
unpaid caregiver that I
Mm-hmm.
think hoops we have to jump through. And people saying to me, and it's well meaning, I know it, but I was as guilty of this as the next person. But when you just say to someone, you really need to take care of yourself.
Yeah,
Well, I know that. But I don't know how, because
yeah,
what I need is like, I need somebody to help me. I need, finances. I don't need yoga or a bubble bath.
yeah,
Those aren't good
yes.
things. Not that those aren't good things, Trina.
Not
I
right,
love yoga.
right. I get
but
it.
it's not going to relieve the stress that these larger systemic issues that we have in society.
Yes.
So all that, word salad there, just to say that I thought I really want to delve into how we can use self-care, self-improvement to make changes within ourselves to then go out and advocate and help other women make changes for them
Mhm.
individually and collectively. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah.
Good, because that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I'm starting this the podcast. I don't know when I'm going to launch it, but I've got the trailer recorded, and so I'm getting started on that.
Okay. And so is it mostly, I saw that you had gotten some certifications. So what are those, and is that where that's going to mostly help you in the podcast?
Well, I don't know. I do have a
Okay.
life purpose certification, and then I do have a mental wellness certification that I just obtained. I basically, Trina, got into the mental wellness certification because I wanted to understand how I could help me, Steve, and both of us together. Uh, because his situation, his transverse myelitis, his life has changed. Oh my gosh, dramatically. I mean, this was a guy walking 12,000 steps a day. He went to music shows all the time. We were gone every weekend, and now he can walk unaided only around the apartment. I mean, he's still on a walker. So I mean, our life is just like it's
Bam.
unrecognizable,
Yeah.
and you can either let that make you or break you.
Mhm.
It sucks. We don't like it. We wish we had our life back, but we don't.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
Eh,
what are we going to do to move forward and keep our wits about us and not fall into this despair and depression?
Mhm.
So that's when I really started looking into mental wellness, and it was fascinating because it's nutrition, financial wellness, the self care that I've really been looking into. It encompasses a lot of things. So one of the first thing I did was I changed Steve's diet. That's really important for,
But it
your
is.
your
Yeah.
mental wellness. So that's really where that started because, I and I know you're the same way I'm treating it. When you get curious about something, you just like want to dig into it.
Yeah.
That's really where that mental wellness component of it started for me.
I think that's really good though that you were like, all right, I have this problem of I know he's not doing well. I know I'm not doing well. Let's
Mhm.
figure out why we're not doing well and how we can start fixing that. What was one of the first things that surprised you most about when you started learning? Like what was what was right in front of you that you were like, "Oh,
Well, I don't know that it was right in front of me, and this might be an odd answer to your question, Trina, but um, that 90, and this is like a sort of an oddball thing, but 95% of the serotonin we produce is in our gut. And I had
uh-huh.
no idea. Like like
Oh,
like how our gut microbiome talks to our head and how
yeah.
food and sleep and movement really affect that. And
Our
so
second
that was
brain.
yeah, it's
Our
exactly, and
second brain."
it was fascinating to me, Trina. So that was like the thing that was like, whoa, okay, I've really got to dig into this now.
Yeah.
So like, Steve eats sauerkraut almost every day,
Yeah.
also probiotics, all sorts of stuff. So I just found that really fascinating. I don't think a lot of people know, you
It
know.
yeah, it's still, I think the people that have been affected by it and have started treating it are like, yeah, thank goodness. But then there are still more people that are learning about it, and I'm hoping it starts becoming more mainstream to treat those things, and especially the mental aspect of all of this. We learn in elementary school, I've said this so many times, we take PE classes for physical education, so we understand how to move our bodies and take care of our physical well-being, but we're not really taught too much about understanding feelings and moods and how to work through things that are being thrown at us. Like you were thrown out, you're enjoying life with your partner and things are going great, and then so much unknown.
Yeah. Yeah.
And being a caretaker like that is, you always first think of the patient, and you should, but the caretaker takes on so much too that, like, talk about some of that, what that was like for you or
Oh
is. I
gosh.
mean, I guess you don't say was, it is.
Yeah, when he was in the neuro ward for 15 days. So
Mhm.
on the onset, he was paralyzed from the waist down.
Mhm.
So like he couldn't move his hands. So I stayed in the hospital on the bed
Yeah.
that they have for
Yeah.
people uh, because he couldn't push his call button. He couldn't feed himself. So that's really where that started for me. And I have talked to other people who said, I really didn't go, should I be a caretaker or not? Now, what are the pros and cons of this? You just do it, you
Yeah.
know? And so that was my first foray into that. And then he went into inpatient therapy, and I wasn't allowed. Well, I wasn't allowed to stay the night, but he was there for I think maybe a month. Um, but I was there every day. Like I went in the morning with breakfast, then he would have his PTOT, then I'd go back at night. And then he came home and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with you?
Yeah.
He's been under the care of professionals 24 hours a day for over a month. He comes home with all these pills and all these things. And they did teach me how to use the gait belt and to watch him when he was walking. But then they're like, well, you're on your own, buddy. Been nice knowing you. Call us if you need us, you know. So the first couple of weeks, Trina, it was very stressful because we were tired, we weren't sleeping very well. Every little thing freaked us out. Why are
Mhm.
you doing that? Why does that look like that? What's happening there? Should you take
Sure.
this? Should you, we just totally freaked out, and then we became more comfortable with it. I can leave him for a couple hours now and go do some things. But I think, not only, changing Steve's life, and I'm glad you talked about the caregiving because I don't think a lot of people realize that even though I wouldn't change my role as caregiver, there are times where I need to step back or people need to understand not just the physical toll, but like you said, the mental toll because I am not the same person I was before.
No.
I go to places now where I used to go with Steve. He doesn't go with me anymore because I mean he's getting out more, but he couldn't. I don't work in the not-for-profit field anymore, which was like my life and my identity, you know. Um, so I'm not sleeping very well. So there's just these things that go on that as a caregiver, oh, it's just a difficult transition, but it's getting better now.
Mhm.
We're a little more relaxed with things. We're creating this life where we can still be social and still have some good mental health. It's
Yeah.
just different.
Yeah.
But we're really, even though I don't really care for this phrase, we're really leaning into
Yeah.
the situation at the moment. I don't know how else to say it, but
Yeah. Well,
embracing the situation for what it
yeah.
is.
Now, is he expected to make a full recovery, or is he just going to have a new, different life now?
There's some old research out that says and this, I don't know, it's old because this was really before they started the treatments that they do now, but they say one third will never recover, one third will partially recover, and one third will, they say, fully recover. Um, I don't think Steve will ever fully recover, for one thing, because of his age, and then secondly, it was acute. I mean,
Oh,
it came on in 12 hours. From the time we got left to the ER till the next morning, it was 12 hours of that he was paralyzed from the waist down. So it was very acute. And so that lends itself to less progress. But I will say, I think Steve has made tremendous progress from not being able
good.
to move at all to now walking unaided, although precarious,
Right,
around
right.
the apartment in just 6 months, I think really is a testament to his determination. Therapy,
Yep.
is crucial for transverse myelitis patients, but I don't think he will never fully recover. One of our
Mhm.
hopes is that he will eventually be able to drive, even if it's with adaptive
Yeah. Yeah.
hand controls, because he can do his hands better than his feet now. But, there's only 1,400 cases a year of this, Trina, so it's very rare, so it's like,
Mhm.
you
And
know,
say again what it is so people and so if anybody else knows or has this and they want to reach out to you.
it's transverse myelitis.
Okay.
Yeah,
And it's a
and it's,
neurological disorder.
yes, what happens is your body gets an infection, virus or bacterial, or you get a tick bite or West Nile or vaccine or anything, triggers a response in your body. And instead of your immune system going to that place, it
It,
attacks your spine. Well, I
oh,
mean, I don't really, I'm not a doctor, so I don't, that's the best I can understand.
right.
It creates a lesion on
Hmm.
your spine, and then that causes the paralysis.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then they did 3 days of IV steroids, a bunch of antibiotics, plasma transfers, and IVGB, I think it's called, which is, they started. Luckily, here at Springfield, we have a really good medical system, as you know, and they just really honed in on it and started it right away. And I think that lends itself to his success, because if you got this back in the 80s or 90s, they didn't have those treatments.
Goodness.
Yeah.
I know sometimes it feels like medicine moves so slow, but if you step back, it moves pretty darn fast.
Yes.
I was
Yes.
talking to a lady also affected by rheumatoid arthritis, and we were talking about how much progress they've had even since we were diagnosed with kids. So the kids today have such a better chance
Yeah.
of going into remission like that and not having the damage. Not to say it doesn't affect every single person in some crazy different way,
Right.
but
Right.
the hope is there. So I'm glad he's on this side of it
Yes.
this day and age. So let's talk about, if you don't mind, because I know so many people are in your same position of they're moving along with a career they love. They're doing a job that they're like, wow, this is great. And then something happens. Um, did they work with you at all, or was it just a no, you can't be in the office, too bad, thanks for trying, or why did this happen this the way it did?
Well, let me think back. Well, it came on suddenly, so it's,
Right.
that was part of the problem. I think, it was a Sunday night, and Monday morning I called the office and said, "Hey, I'm not coming in." I did do some work remotely in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of work, granted, but
Yeah.
I did do some. And they don't offer very much. They didn't offer very much PTO at this agency I was at, so I had run out of PTO.
Okay.
And they basically said, "We need you to resign because we need someone 8 hours a day in the office," which you don't. I mean, I worked during the pandemic for the Victim Center 2 years, sitting right here where I'm at,
Yeah.
and I did three, virtual events, and wrote a lot of grants and raised a lot of money, and never stepped foot in the office during the pandemic. So I don't really, I'm not going to even try to guess what was going on there. But I was given the option of resigning or coming back to the office, and I was not going to resign, and they ended up firing me under the no-show
Oh,
clause.
great.
Like, I didn't show up for work for 3 days. Um, and uh, anyway, so that's it in a
That was it.
nutshell. That's, I can't
Okay.
speak to what their thought process was, but from my end, that's what it looked like. It was just like,
Mhm.
well, you're not doing enough work. We need you here.
So it wasn't personal, it was procedure, but
Yeah.
uh, like you and I both know, I feel like, especially since we proved in 2020 that we can do a lot of work remotely, I don't understand why so many places are digging their heels in, not changing procedure,
Yeah.
especially when it's a case such as yours.
Yeah.
Which I'm telling you, there have been times where I have been in the space that you're supposed to be in, and someone is messaging me, "Are you here?" Why then can I not be at home comfortable where I'm warm and cozy doing the same work, if not more productive? You've got me going. I can't
Yeah.
understand that method of thinking.
Well,
And
yeah, it's called, the butt in the seat mentality. But and that's a great segue into one of the things I want to talk about in the podcast, because, you've got women who are either, have kids and are trying to take care of their kids, or kids and aging parents. You got women in their 40s and 50s that are doing that, or people who aren't as fortunate as I am, who have to work and are caregivers. Who can't leave their person. They
Yeah.
have to have someone with them all the time. Now, I can't leave Steve overnight. I can't leave him 8 hours a day, but I'm fortunate enough that I am able to stay home and take care of him, because here's another fun fact, Trina. He's on Medicare. Medicare will not pay for in-home health if he's doing outpatient therapy. So another fun fact for all you folks out there. So that was, one of the high horses I got on when I was thinking about this podcast, because we're told as women, you know, you can de-stress by, going to yoga, or there's these company wellness programs, but don't ask for any more time off. Don't ask for unpaid family leave. Don't ask for flexible work schedules. Don't ask to
Mhm.
work from home, but go take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Make sure you take care of yourself. So that's the
Yep.
larger systemic problem that I want
Yes.
to talk about in
Yes.
terms of, helping people out. And, there's some other things that went on too in terms of systems, with me feeling like I was really let down
Yeah. Yeah.
because of some arbitrary, stupid rule.
Yeah.
So, but back to my place of employment. I mean, I get it. They're a business. They have to make money, and I'm the fun development person. That's my
Mm.
job. But I've also worked in agencies where I know that this had happened, and when my dad was sick with cancer, I took a leave of work from one agency. It was a perfect example. They all picked up the slack and said, "Don't you worry about it.
Yeah. It
You
can
know,
be done.
you go do what you need to do." And
Yeah.
now I don't think I could have done that for a year, but
Right. Right.
but
But
so anyway, that's that you just get me all on a righteous indignation
yeah,
tangent here.
same.
All this stuff.
So wait, have you decided for a name for the podcast yet? What?
Empower her wellness.
Empower her wellness.
Oh,
All right, I will be looking forward to that. I'm all for it. It sounds important. It is important. I'd love for you to come back and give us updates, and we'll promote it. I'm
oh, anytime.
sounds
You come
great.
on. You can come be on my podcast too, Trina.
I would love to.
We'll get righteously indignant together.
We will do it. Sounds great. Anything else you want to share before we close? Have I missed anything?
I think that, in turn, I just want people to know I don't think self-care is bad.
No.
I sit on my balcony every day with my coffee and my journal, listening to the birds, and it's so good for me.
Mm-hmm.
But then we also, I think, need to look collectively at self-care. Like,
Yeah.
it's just not a one person internal thing. We,
Yeah.
there's, women of color, women with disabilities, lots of things that collectively, institutionally wise, we need to really work on. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Self care is
You're
not the
not.
devil.
It's not. I mean, first of all, it looks different for everybody else.
Yeah,
I mean, your coffee for you is relaxing. It might stress, woman number two out, and that's not for her. But what you're saying, it's not just trying to find 5 minutes to take that coffee break to relax yourself, and then you're going to be refreshed and all done. It's a collective thing that has to happen over a bigger picture long term. And like you said, there are so many systemic issues
yeah,
that have
yeah.
manifested. And if we don't start changing those, we're not going to be any better for it down the road.
Well, what we're doing, it's like they talk about people who are alcoholics who go to rehab. They go to rehab, they get better, then they go right back into the same system that they were alcoholics in.
Yeah, you've got to
I go sit on the
change.
balcony. I have a few moments of no stress. I come back to my stressful situation. I
Yes,
mean, it's anyway.
you're right. Very good.
That's
I
another
know.
story for another day.
Thank you so much for spending some time talking. Shelly Drymon, follow her on TikTok, listen to her podcast, and she'll come back and share more with us, I hope, in the near future.
Thank you, Trina.
Talk to you soon. Be sure you're following along at runradio.net.